That's not a statement of opinion, that's a statement of fact. You need to have funding keep pace with that. And the fuel tax is an imperfect vehicle. It's becoming more and more imperfect, given fuel economy standards that are going up and people are purchasing less fuel. So there are inherent problems with the fuel tax, but it is something that is currently on the books, that there is at least some degree of public understanding of it and acceptance of it, some degree. I will underscore, it's not a brand new concept. And so the decision was made to actually support an increase in the fuel tax by 10 cents. There's some people who say 10 cents is woefully inadequate. Others who will say we shouldn't send one more cent to the federal government. So there's a real spectrum in that. And the farmers that I'm accountable to decided on a 10-cent increase and indexing to inflation. This chart just simply expresses what that would mean, that 10-cent increase would mean to a farmer, whether you have, it's 1,000 acres, 2,000 acres, 3,000 acres, which is a very large farm. And it all depends upon how much you grow, how far you transport. I mean, there's some farmers that just deliver 10 miles away. There's others who deliver 150 miles away. So it really kind of depends on what that impact could be. So the impact could be $99 additional a year, or it could be almost $2,500 additional a year. It just depends upon all of those different variables. But this is a chart that highlights that, and something that we're continuing to look into. The final project I'll just highlight is more local. So we're engaged at the federal level on a host of these issues, but we also want to have our feet firmly planted at the local level. And we have an initiative that we're working on with various counties and state DOTs in the effort to promote the use of technology when evaluating rural bridges. And one of the concerns that have been expressed to us from the engineering community is that the prevailing way of evaluating a bridge is traditionally a visual inspection. And you'll never hear me say that the engineering community has not served the American people well. They've served the American people very well. We have a very safe system, and it's largely attributed to the responsibility that engineers have taken upon themselves in conducting themselves in their positions. So they've done a very good job of ensuring a safe system. But again, what I've repeatedly and increasingly heard from the engineering community is that because the process of evaluating bridges is a visual inspection, there is some subjectivity to that process, and it can result in a bridge being load posted when it really doesn't need to be. And it can also result in a county not being able to make strategic investments in their infrastructure. So wouldn't it be better, as argued to me and as I'm arguing to others, that if a county originally has the conclusion that we need to repair or do major rehab on bridges 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Is that better, or is it better for a county to maybe have a more thorough evaluation process and then come to the conclusion that, you know, I really need to focus on bridges 1, 3, and 5. That really needs to be what the focus of our resources. Bridges 2 and 4 are actually in good condition, and we can safely defer maintenance and repair for a number of years. That can have profound impact on a county budget. And so we got acquainted with this process, and then we also got acquainted with the fact that there's technology available that can remove a lot of that subjectivity from the bridge evaluation process. And so we asked ourselves as an organization, can we help play a meaningful role in help promoting this in rural areas of the country? So what we decided to do is allocate $130,000, $10,000 for each of the 13 states. That's a part of the Soy Transportation Coalition to help facilitate this kind of pilot project where you're doing load testing technology and evaluating rural bridges. And we've had some momentum in a number of states, but one I wanted to highlight was a project that we completed late last year in a county in central Michigan, Midland County. And so we worked with the Midland County Road Commission and their county engineer, a longtime veteran of the Michigan Department of Transportation, who's now the county engineer in Midland County. And we provided this $10,000 to help them acquire this technology, a sensor kit. In the middle picture at the top is them installing the sensors on the underside of the bridge, and then the picture to the far right is them doing a test load to capture how the stream data that the bridge is incurring as a result of that. And then they're able to come up with a real understanding of what the true condition of that bridge is, removing some of that subjectivity that the visual inspection process provided. And so the results of it were quite compelling. They tested 3 bridges. Bridge number 1, they were able to justify a 10% increase in allowable weight. Bridge number 2, a 30% increase, and bridge number 3, a 30% increase. So the load postings on all 3 of those bridges have been removed. And what's exciting is that they're testing 3 additional bridges as we speak. We're getting more traction on this concept in other states throughout the Soy Transportation Coalition footprint. So this is going to be replicated over and over again. And the savings can be quite significant when you're talking about rural communities. And so that's one of the things that I want Midland County and all these other areas that we're working with, I want them to be able to say that we're providing savings to our constituents who pay for and use our rural bridges. So this just kind of expresses, so they tested 3 bridges, they removed the load postings on all 3. The average detour, when those bridges were restricted, it resulted on average a 5-mile detour. And so by being able to identify, so how many trucks were affected by this 5-mile detour on a daily basis, therefore how many miles were affected on a daily basis or incurred, how much on an annual basis, and then what's the cost of that on a per mile basis. When you add the cost of bridge number 1, there was about a $13,000 annual cost to the taxpayers in just that one county for that one bridge. Bridge number 2, about $30,000. Bridge number 3 had more traffic, $57,000. So for just these 3 bridges in one section of one county, over $100,000 in savings that now the taxpayers in Midland County are enjoying. And again, 3 more bridges are being tested as we speak, and this is being spread to other states. And so I just think this is an example of we need to be focused on the big macro issues like ports and locks and dams, but we can't lose sight of the fact that we need to be attentive to the rural roads and bridges, because we do enjoy a supply chain, and I think that's the important metaphor to use. And as we all know with chains, you're only as strong as your weakest link, and the analogy I like to use is that it doesn't matter if every link in your chain is made of stainless steel if one link in that chain is a twisty tie. You're only as strong as your weakest link, and so we need to make sure that we've got this rural road and bridge system that can accommodate this growth in demand and growth in supply. And with our rail policy and rail capacity, our inland waterway system, our ports, we need to make sure that they're all working together. And if we're able to do that, then we're going to be well positioned to flourish, not just today, but also throughout this century. So with that, thank you very much.